under the previous government, the Department of Internal Affairs proposed a regulator for online platforms with the intention to restrict legal content which could be considered to cause harm online or cause a loss of emotional well-being. Most of the public submissions during the consultation were opposed to the idea, with concerns raised about freedom of expression and the subjective nature of content, which could be upsetting but is not illegal. If the initiative had gone on to become law, it would have resulted in an unelected, unaccountable regulator getting to decide, without legislative scrutiny, what you and I would be allowed to read, watch, listen to and even write. Minister of Internal Affairs is Brooke van Velden, and she joins me now. Good afternoon, Brooke.
Good afternoon, Leah. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Good to talk to you. Been a while.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, what this work, let's just kind of go back a couple of steps, Brooke. This work was initiated under Jacinda Ardern, and what was the purpose as you understood it?
You're absolutely right. This was, in my view, an extension of the work that the previous government was undertaking to create hate speech laws, where the government wished to further police and regulate what you could say online in terms of harmful content or content that could create a loss of emotional well-being. That was what they were looking into. I think that goes a step too far, because this government believes in freedom of speech. That's central, especially important to ACT, but to the coalition government, that people have a right to discussion, a right to freedom of thought, and to be able to put their opinions online, not to be policed for very subjective information.
So
now, I've made that decision to then say, right, let's stop this work, because I think it goes far too far when we should allow for freedom of speech.
So if it had happened, Brooke, am I right in saying online platforms could have been punished for even hosting jokes or maybe a political speech?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's quite possible that what would have ended up happening was people could complain, and a regulator could be asking a media company or a owner of a social media platform or any other online platform to take down what could be jokes or memes or political satire, anything that could have been construed as causing harm or a loss of social, emotional or mental well-being to people. But of course, that's extremely subjective. I mean, if you just take one specific example, there's a lot of discussion at the moment about the Treaty Principles Bill that David Seymour is looking to progress. It riles up a few emotions against people on the left, and I think it would be particularly harmful in this particular context to try and suppress or squash down debate that simply people don't like or don't wish to have because they don't want to hear other people's political views.
Can I talk to you about, though, the DIA has reported that the majority of submissions it received from 105 media, tech and regulatory organisations were supportive of the proposed mandatory regime. Does that worry you?
No, that doesn't worry me. It doesn't surprise me that much. If you're thinking about regulators that already exist and they already have their own ways of filtering content online, there wouldn't necessarily be too much that's changing for them. So really there's a first mover advantage for the big players or the big social media platforms like Instagram, who already have filtering services. But if you're someone who has a smaller online company or a smaller online presence, there would be a huge compliance cost to be on the same level as some of those bigger players. So I can understand why some of the larger players came to the table and say, yep, we could probably do that. But this wasn't just for social media. This was for all online content. So that could be all the way down to your little blog created by, I don't know, some guy in his basement.
Yeah. We're all blogs are made. Can we look overseas and what's happened in Canada with Justin Trudeau's government there? They introduced the Online Harms Act, or Bill C-63. Now, it was sold as increasing child safety and protecting the vulnerable. Well, all good so far. But under the bill, anyone can accuse you of the communication of hate speech, and if the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal finds you guilty, they can order you to pay up to $20,000 to any victim or $50,000 to the state. And it isn't just stuff that you've posted, after the new law comes into force, but anything you posted ever. I mean, how did that get through? I mean, it's Canada, but I mean, that's quite scary.
Yeah, look, firstly, for that, I would say, look, this is up to Canada. Canada is a completely separate jurisdiction, so they're able to pass their own laws. But that's not something that I would look to wanting to do here in New Zealand. I think that does go a step too far. Where it comes to things like child sexual exploitation material online, I absolutely agree that that's abhorrent, and we should seek to take that down in line with what Canada does there too. But we already have that going on in New Zealand. That's what DIA already does. The idea that you could rifle all your way through someone's history on Facebook, 15 years into the past, to find them for something they said when they were a teenager, that doesn't sit well with me, and I don't think that's something our government would be ever seeking to progress.